Welcome to the morning show, Prakash. There are three things which have happened, I think, in the last 1.5 years. One is obviously the move towards 5G. Secondly, is the PLI scheme on IT hardware, which is bringing in a lot of interest and a lot of Indian companies who are going to now manufacture in the country. And also the EV revolution, which is highly chip driven, is no longer a dream, it's now a reality. Looking at these three big things which has happened, how do you see Intel playing role in all these three and in terms of your strategy for India?
It's first of all, great to be here, Surajit. Thank you for having me and look forward to this dialogue. There are a few ways to look at it. Number one, silicon semiconductor technology is more important now than ever before. And everything connected is computing, everything computing is connected, increasingly so, more so in COVID. So that we can talk about on how that translates into trend on how the country evolves. But with that in mind, you look at Intel. Intel is one of the very few companies with the breadth, the scale capability we have, and the kind of innovative products we build. We are in a great position to contribute towards making the world happen where technology becomes first or semiconductor becomes extremely important. And how we are contributing in India is three different ways, Surajit. Number one is purely innovation. When you look at innovation, Intel has been in India for 22 years. Past 22 years, we have built the second largest design facility across the world. And it spans AI, 5G, cloud, IoT, machine learning, you name it. Most of those skills exist, and it's a great testament to talent. The second area that is very important to consider is skilling and education. When you look at some of the initiatives that we have done over several years, AI for Youth is a great example of collaboration with CBSE. And we have, over a period of time, trained over 110,000 youth on skills and tool sets of AI. The collaboration we are doing with CBSE on AI for all as citizens, where our ambition is to train 1 million citizens on AI. Those are some of the areas we are contributing. Last week, we announced Unnati, which is 100 data-centric labs across research institutions and universities, which helps provide infrastructure for students and teachers alike. The third area is industry collaboration. You look at the engagement with Airtel as an example on ORAN or network transformation overall, and built on our platforms, solutions, reference architecture, software, everything combined. Or when you look at Reliance Jio, the collaboration we have with on 5G, AI, edge, everything, which is very significant. So these three areas, whether it's innovation, what we are bringing to bear, skilling and education, which raises all boats for the country, and industry collaboration. Those are three pillars going back to your comment about how the world is changing and impacting several different ways, can have a foundational impact to how the world evolves in India and what role semiconductor and ecosystem connected to semiconductors will increasingly play a part in the future.
What is the sort of specific strategy that you have in the for the electric vehicle space, and also the fact that you're going to have a whole host of Indian manufacturers who are now going to build laptops in this country? And also you're having a lot of startups which are coming in and doing various kinds of hardware, where in what way are you sort of supporting them? Is it through equity participation, is it through technology, or is it through both?
We are open to all options is what I would say, Surajit. I'll set the context as saying that semiconductor technology is increasingly embedded in all forms of products. We don't specifically work on EVs just yet. I would say there are several other segments which we are contributing very actively in beyond laptops, areas like telecom networks, AI solutions, edge solutions. These are several other use cases, 5G as a great example. So those are several elements that Intel will play a very strong role in the country. And when you look at those areas, our approach is few different ways. Number one, provide the technology towards making that ecosystem build out happen much more in a proactive way. So over the past years, we have collaborated with several local players, Coconix being a great example, which is a laptop brand. There are several other local companies that we have collaborated with to bring them up the path of maturity. The second area I would say is active collaboration, public-private collaboration, whether it's policy, whether it is collaboration around building an ecosystem, and areas similar to that. That would be one aspect we will continue to stay engaged. And lastly would be, as you look at future forward, I would say this will be your journey. This is a marathon. This is not a sprint. So ecosystem development, as we see it, will take multiple years. It will take combination of great public policies, collaboration, startup engagement, broader ecosystem to move the ball forward. And PLI, as a scheme that you also refer to, is a great first step. It not only covers technology products, it also covers batteries, it covers telecom and network, which is a great start. And over a period of time, I think we would make progress.
There's a lot of government push to see that we also have a semiconductor manufacturing facility in the country. And there is a lot of discussions which is going on, and I think a lot of the stakeholders discussions are happening. What do you see is the potential of India for setting up a semiconductor manufacturing facility, or what is the sort of challenges that it faces in this area? Because we have tried numerous times, but we have somehow not been able to get the equation right.
First off, I would say we see tremendous opportunity in silicon semiconductor ecosystem. So when you look at Department of Electronics and IT data as well, 90% of global semiconductor companies have got design center footprint here. You've got 2,000 chips that are designed in the country every year. That is a stunning statistic. So you have the ecosystem that is available. We see an opportunity in fabless semiconductor ecosystem evolving pretty rapidly for those same reasons. And in fact, some of the areas we are already there. The manufacturing part of the ecosystem, there are two parts to it, Surajit. Number one, it is highly capital intensive. You would already know that. And the second part is it's very diverse. So you can have elements like edge, telecom equipment, 5G equipment, to laptops, to phones, to a variety of different spaces, industrial IoT included, which could be relevant in this area. So both of them combined would mean that you need a variety of different things to happen, very similar or consistent with what I mentioned. One, you got to have very conducive policies. You need to have great infrastructure, including power, logistics, transportations, to be really best in class. Industry and public-private collaboration, startup to industry collaboration, academic to industry collaboration on research projects. All of these elements come together and happen consistently over multiple years. You would see great progress on manufacturing and development of a semiconductor ecosystem beyond fabless. So we are extremely committed to the cause. We will contribute to it to the best extent we can because of the footprint we have, because of the design capabilities we have built over the last 22 years. We are committed to that cause.
You said there are around 2,000 chips which are designed in the country. If you take a global view of this, I mean, this is what percentage of the total chips which are manufactured, which are designed all across the world?
I won't have the data handy on that. Okay. But the fact that 90% of the semiconductor companies have a design footprint here tells you the talent and the capability that exists in the country. And all of, I would argue, these design centers drive global projects, including Intel. The projects are global, design projects are global in nature. So it bodes very well in terms of the essential building blocks, which is talent. If you have great talent and capital comes in, as well as collaboration comes in, public and private sector, there is nothing we can't do in this country. So extremely optimistic.
So as we obviously have now the capability of designing the chips. So what is the next step that India should take?
I would say go down the path of creating or deepening the ecosystem. The fabulous ecosystem can design the chips, but there are several other parts of the supply chain that can get built out over a period of time. You will have, through a PLI scheme, as an example, the end products getting manufactured here over a period of time. That is, the final product would be the other end of the spectrum when it comes to manufacturing. And between the design and the manufacturing of the final products, the rest of the ecosystem would build over a period of time on top of the levers I talked about: conducive policy, collaboration across the ecosystem, which includes industry to government, industry to startups, industry to academic and research institutions. So it fuels the fire in terms of designing products which are needed for the country, getting it manufactured most times in the country, and longer term, you can be the design and manufacturing ecosystem for the world, not only for India. But when you look at compare and contrast to places around the world where the ecosystems have developed, it is a long-term game. It is not a short-term result-oriented objective. So you have to stay at it for decades, and you would see the ecosystem evolve pretty rapidly and in a positive way.
Do you see companies like Intel seriously looking at India from a manufacturing perspective?
I would say we are super committed to the country, Surajit, for everything that we talked about. The design capability, the biggest design capability outside of US that we have in India, is a great testament to talent. And in fact, it is contributor to the ecosystem development. The talent and capability in the country, the silicon semiconductor within Intel itself, can be really helping development of the ecosystem. And at the same time, the work we are doing around skilling, a couple other projects that I can talk to you about: innovation, startup program, plug-in. Since 2016, we have been collaborating closely. It was hardware only initiative to start with, but now it has evolved to areas like AI, to 5G, to cloud. That contributes in a big way towards innovation. The work we are doing with IIIT Hyderabad, as an example, towards building smart mobility solutions. Those are some of the areas where longer term, when you're talking about products and solutions and technologies getting built for India and over a period of time manufactured, all of these initiatives are really putting foundation in the ground so that the country can build from there. So absolutely committed.
But are you also committed to manufacture chips in India?
I would say the public information on that is what our CEO announced. We made a very strong commitment on increasing the supply chain capability. Like you know, everything digital, the demand for it has gone up. So you're seeing significant supply chain challenges on components, on substrates. The 20 billion announcement that we made on Arizona plant, the work that we are doing on improving the substrate and component supply chain situation, along with our partners, are great examples of what we are doing towards helping bridge the gaps and serve our customers better. And around the same vein would be our focus towards building the global supply chain capabilities. Over a period of time, we will continue to explore globally on what's the best way to solve the needs of our customers. Right now, beyond that, we don't have a public announcement to make for India.
There has been obviously a global shortage of chips, from automobiles to mobiles. How do you, I mean, now you have, I think, a more clearer perspective of where we are in terms of the demand in India. When do you think this sort of get resolved, and in which areas will it get resolved earlier, and where it will take a lot of time? Because a lot of the auto industry seems to be still, while the mobile industry is much more in a better position, but the automobile industry obviously has had serious impact.
On the lighter note, I was reading the Harvard Business Review, and even on the HBR website today, if you see, they talk about the supply chain issues and they cannot ship the HBR physical copy. So the supply chain is impacting different industries in different ways. But from a technology point of view, I would say This is, in a long time, the highest spike we have seen on a variety of products. And the reason for that is everything technology is really mattering now than ever before. You see PCs to phones as the most obvious ones, even the areas like automotive, appliances, every segment is impacted because they all require semiconductors and chips. So the way I see it is, number one, everyone is helping to make this better. You see it across the industries. I talked to you about what Intel is doing towards making it better. Everybody is taking steps, but the demand still remains very strong, Shurajit. You saw our results as well. The demand is very, very strong for silicon and semiconductor products. So despite the investments we are making, and semiconductor being a long-term, high capital intensive game, this will take 1 or 2 years to really address the gap. And the segments and how they evolve remains to be seen. It would be suffice to say, most of the segments you will see a gap for at least the next 12, 18 months, is my judgment. Just listening to our customers and how the demand is progressing, even in India, the demand is really strong for client products, for cloud and data center. So it is a long-term solution. There may not be a short-term fix to it.
So in India, it will be around about 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, that was a global point of view, I would say, Surajit. And again, that is our best guess right now, between 1 and 2 years, as we see it. As the demand progresses, as the economies recover from COVID, we'll have to see how it all unfolds, whether the technology momentum continues to remain strong. Right now, that's what we are judging, the time frame between 1 and 2 years. Yeah, and we would respond as the markets and segments progress.
I mean, what is the sort of outlook that you see for 2022 in terms of technological change, and how does it sort of make a difference to the lives of consumers? Which are going to be the key areas where Intel is working on in the globe, as well as specifically about India?
The way we see the world evolve, Surajit, there are 4 key trends we see. We call it superpowers because they feed off each other. Number one is cloud to edge computing, which means the data flows from edge to the cloud, gets analyzed wherever it needs to be analyzed to be most effective in terms of deployment or solving a problem for the business. That's one. The second is pervasive connectivity like 5G, because it can be dramatic in terms of impact it would have on different verticals, including healthcare, including agriculture, as an example. Then you've got AI, which is getting infused in every application, infused in every platform or semiconductor footprint that you see in different parts of the network. And lastly would be computing becoming really ubiquitous. Everything is going to be connected. Everything that is connected would be computing. So those are the 4 trends we see dramatically. And that, because it is feeding off each other, is creating a demand for the infrastructure build out like what we have seen absolutely never in the past. So it is once in a lifetime opportunity to really be digital first and technology first to alter the business or your business model for every company. So we see that in our interactions with customers and partners. That's how you would see the world evolve. And when you look at India, I would say there are 4 trends that are shaping the country. Number one, and you see that in your day-to-day interaction, cloud is becoming the most accepted service delivery model. You see that in payments to e-commerce to investing, almost everything is on the cloud, and it's always delivered as a service. So that as a service, as it relates to cloud being a service delivery model, would only accelerate. The second is, given COVID has really inspired a rethink in how work happens, you would argue that people are thinking about, can I move the jobs to where talent is located rather than other way around? So you would see the smaller cities evolve in terms of talent and capabilities and the jobs, how they are placed in the country. It's a big impact and implication in a software-rich or talent-rich country like India. Now, when you see the different verticals evolve, and I talked about superpowers really transforming industries, you would see increasingly the ecosystem being diverse. A lot of startups coming in, a lot of new age companies coming in, and really altering the trajectory of how ecosystem used to be, which is most times large companies and some SMEs. So it'll look vastly different a few years from now. And they will all be fueled by localized infrastructure. And that localized infrastructure could be localized 5G, localized cloud, and so on and so forth. So a combination of cloud being a service delivery model, work evolving to wherever the talent is located, highly diversified ecosystem a few years or a decade from now, and the localized infrastructure would shape the country very differently in future.
What is the kind of localization of talent you have?
Our biggest footprint right now is Bangalore, I would say, Surajit, and we have got a facility in Hyderabad, which is more recent, and we have got smaller offices in Mumbai and Delhi. But I would say, as with any company, we are also exploring hybrid work globally. And we are listening to our employees very closely, taking their feedback on how they would want work to really structure around their lives. More and more important, because work and life has become intertwined now. And then responding accordingly. So you got policies which will be shaped over the multiple years in future to cater to those needs. So we will, I would say, in future, look, respond, take feedback, and evolve.
What is the kind of R&D development that you do in India in terms of chips?
It's really a cutting edge design work. These are global projects, Surajit. These are projects spanning the business unit that I mentioned to you, SoC design, as an example, or AI, cloud, 5G, or network in general, smart mobility. These are all the areas, these are all solutions or capabilities that are really cutting edge, very recent in terms of its adoption. So yeah, we are very, very proud about the contribution the Intel India Design Facility has had in terms of global Intel fraternity on product innovation. Absolutely, cutting edge.
A lot of global companies have their sort of venture capital funds, which work and give funding to companies doing different kinds of work, but they need financial support. So how is that program for you? I mean, how many such companies have you supported? What is the nature of the method that you use? Which are the areas that you look at?
Intel Capital is a global organization for us. And that's the team you're talking about, Shurjit, within Intel. If they have a global view of innovations, areas to focus on, and they make assessments on those investments on a regular basis. And whenever we make an investment, we make that public as well, either at the time when it has happened or during our quarterly earnings. You would see us make those announcements pretty regularly. So yeah, it's an active team within the company, and we continue to stay focused on what are the opportunities, how could we really invest and make the innovation go further in areas that matter to us. Keep in mind that the investments we make are the technologies and areas that we are betting on as a company. And some of those I mentioned to you about the superpowers, right? And in those areas where we find interesting avenues, we certainly explore. That's our model, and that is not changing. So some of the recent past, the acquisitions we have made, for example, Altera, the FPGA acquisition, or Mobileye, those are a couple of examples of additions we have made. They were fairly complementary to our product portfolio. FPGA were excellent to our data-centric portfolio, or smart mobility that Mobileye talks about is a great as a service model when it comes to automotive industry. So we really felt there was a synergy, and those are a couple of examples I would give you in terms of investments we have made that have really strengthened the portfolio longer term.
What is your commitment and area of work in the 5G space in India? You've talked about Open RAN. So are you betting completely on Open RAN? And they are obviously Indian companies which are now getting into the space not only for their own networks, but basically for the global market. So they are challenging the Ericssons and the other big companies of the world. So, what is the level of collaboration that you have in this whole process? And is it going to be restricted to building the network, or it also would be in trying to look at use cases which are very typical to India?
We have been involved in the area of network transformation for close to a decade. And the first step towards that was, how do we make the 4G network virtualized, open standard space, and hardware which is really conducive for innovation and scale, very reflective of how it operates on the cloud space. So last decade or so, we have been on that path, and we have virtualized several 4G networks. And in fact, we are one of the biggest contributors to 4G network virtualization. Now, the path from 4G to 5G, we actually virtualize the core network, or doing so, the other aspect of virtualization would be the access network. So that is also something we are focused on. And the contribution towards that journey has been great products and technologies. For example, the third generation Xeon Scalable that we just launched earlier this year has got some great innovations built for network workloads in 5G or 4G area, security capabilities, AI capabilities. Those are all what telecom service providers really value in terms of innovations. We don't stop only on hardware. We also build software that complements the hardware technologies. We also build a reference architecture like FlexRAN, which makes it easier for telecom service providers to deploy virtualized networks. So when you look at our collaboration with Airtel as an example, or Reliance Jio, we are bringing all of that to bear. The product portfolio, whether it's third generation Xeon Scalable, whether it's Ethernet, whether it's FPGA, these are all complementary technologies that add value. Software as well as reference capabilities like FlexRAN, and then areas of AI to cloud to 5G, because ultimately more and more 5G network would mirror the cloud economics. You can go up and down in terms of scale, or you can really provision services on the fly. And the other big difference between 5G and 4G network is that it has flexibility to support different kinds of devices, not only phones. It can be gateways, it can be factory automation tools, or it could be a camera. So that flexibility is brought in by 5G. So to summarize, we are absolutely building great technology for network transformation. We have done so for over a decade. We are collaborating both on 4G and 5G. In 5G space, you do both hardware and software innovation. And lastly, the choice of ORAN or any other form of technology deployment is left to our customers or telecom service providers or telecom industry partners. We would collaborate with all of them because they will have different choices to make. We just want to make sure that the platforms that they're building on is open standards, lowest TCO, flexible, virtualized, and scalable.
Thank you, Prakash, for giving us time. Wonderful talking to you.
Likewise. Thank you.
If you like this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram and LinkedIn.